Hey gaming fans, so today I have a deck profile Yu-Gi-Oh for you. Vanity's Ruler. Well, it's kind of like a stun deck, I would say, but it's kind of works off of Vanity's Ruler. Sort of like a Monarch in a sense, a little bit different than a Monarch deck, but let's get to the profile. So this is it's a 2 tribute monster that cannot be special summoned. So unfortunately, the only way to get this monster out is to do the double tributes. But there's ways in this deck to do that, and there's also ways to kind of cheat it. But other than that, once this guy's on the board, your opponent cannot special summon monsters, which is good because you still can. So that's pretty much what it is, and it's got a pretty big body, 2,500 attack. It's too bad it's not 2,800, which is a pretty good standard for a level 8 monster. But I guess they figured from its effect that it would pretty much hold up. Then I put in 2 Archlord Christias. Sort of the same idea, except this one prevents all special summoning, so including yourself. This one does have the 2,800 body. Also a fairy, they're all fairies. This one actually has a built-in effect that can special summon itself. If you have exactly 4 fairies in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. But then when you do, you have to target a fairy monster in your graveyard and add that card to your hand. So there's a lot of good fairies you would probably want to grab. Moving on to the rest of the deck. So this is pretty much your main stoppers of special summoning. But there's also one in here that also stops your opponent from special summoning. And that is the Barrier Statue of Heavens. Now, problem is, it's only going to work if your opponent's not playing light monsters. So if they're playing light monsters, they'll still be able to special summon. But anyways, all the other attributes, they're kind of screwed. The only downside to this one is it's 1,000 attack. So most normal summon monsters can pretty much run this thing over, so you have to protect it. And for your protection, of course, 3 Honest. So ultimately, you'd want to have that in play and have an Honest ready in your hand. So if they did summon a monster to try and destroy it, you can just Honest away. And of course, they're all fairies. So again, this helps for the Christia plays. And when Christia comes into play, if there's an Honest in your graveyard, you're going to grab that as your target, probably. And to help with the stalling and summoning of your big fairy monsters, I put a Gelendul, or Gelendul, however you want to say it. This one, if I had more of these, I probably would play more, but so far I only have the one. And it's a 1,700, so it's a pretty big body. It can't be destroyed by battle, which is cool, because you could set it, and your opponent will run into it and it won't die. And the other thing is, it can be used as 2 tributes for a tribute summon of a light monster, which is your Vanity's Fiend and your Archlord Christia. The only downside to this card is if you take any damage, it gets destroyed. So if they're playing any kind of burn or anything like that, it easily gets destroyed. And then just for a little bit more control, I put in a Thunder King Ryo. I mean, it doesn't need to be in here, but it's a good starter. Turn 1, 1,900 beat stick. Your players can't add cards from their deck to their hand, which you don't really do too much of in this deck anyways. And if your opponent inherently special summons a monster, you can tribute this thing and kill it. So it's a kind of a stall, kind of a control. The other one that's kind of to help you out is the Swordsman of Revealing Light. And again, this is kind of like your it's just going to buy you some time, maybe give you some tribute fodder, but pretty much when your opponent declares a direct attack, you could special summon this card from your hand, and if its defense is higher than the attacking monster's attack, which is 2,400, it destroys the monster. And then each turn, if this card would be destroyed by battle, it's not destroyed. So it actually can stick around pretty good. And the last of the monsters is 3 Vanity's Fiend, again for more control. So special summoned, it cannot be special summoned just like the Vanity's Fiend, but this is only a single tribute and it's 2,400 attack, and monster effects cannot be activated. So it's trying to control the board and shut down all monster effects, which you don't really play any monsters that have effects that activate. outside of Honest. So you wouldn't be able to use your Honest. But that, that's okay. You can use your Honest on any other monsters as long as this guy's not on the field. And that's it for the monsters. So it's got a fair good amount of monster count here. For the spells, just to create some, advantage in a sense, or just to get to your stuff faster, I put in 2 trade-in. And the reason is, your Swordsman is level 8, your Christias are level 8s, and your Vanity's Rulers are level 8s. So there's lots of targets for it, and they could be pretty dead in your hand if you don't have anything to pull them out. So, at that point, you probably just pitch it to the graveyard and hope you draw something good. Now, to help you summon all these tribute monsters, I put the 3 Photon Sanctuaries, which summons 2 tokens to the field in defense position. They're light tokens, and they can only be used for tribute summon of light monsters, which is every single monster in your deck. So you can use 1 token for your Vanity's Fiend, or you can use both tokens for your Ruler or your Christia, whatever you need. And the other way to cheat out your monsters is 2 Mausoleum of the Emperor. And this basically allows you to, instead of using a tribute monster, you get to pay 1,000 life points per tribute. So if you want to tribute out this guy, instead you just pay 1,000. He hits the field, or you pay 2,000. Now the downside is they're not considered tribute summoned when you do this. So anything that has to do with tribute summoned, it won't work. And to search it out, 1 terraforming. I was deciding on having either 3 Emperor Mausoleums or 2 and 1 terraforming. I figured just having the terraforming just to thin the deck a little bit. And here's where tributing comes in important. March of the Monarchs. So tribute summon monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects and cannot be special summoned, and you cannot special summon from the extra deck. So it's a classic Monarch card. And this is where I mean the Mausoleum. If you cheat it out through the Mausoleum, it will not be affected by this card because it has to be tribute summoned. So you're going to have to use your tokens or your monsters or something to tribute summon the monster into the field. But it pretty much protects them from being destroyed, which is good. And just for some defense, I put out Blockout Curtain. This is an interesting card. It's pretty much you put it on the field, and then if any one of your cards would be destroyed by your opponent, you could destroy this card instead. So just going to save it could save your March of the Monarchs, it could save your Mausoleum if you need it, it could save one of your monsters. Just a good card to just save something in case there's destruction. Kind of like these cards, like Mystical Space Typhoons. I put 2 in here just because, back row. And 1 Raigeki in case there's a stubborn monster, you can't get rid of it. And that's it for the spells. So let's get into the traps. So for the first 2 traps, I'm actually trying out trap monsters. And that's Abyss Stingray. And the reason why I picked this one is he's got a pretty big body, 1900 attack, 0 defense, so you're probably not going to put him in defense mode unless you have to. Well, actually, he does have a secondary effect, which would make sense, is that he cannot be destroyed by battle. So I guess if you need to stall, you can put him in defense mode. He won't die anyways. But he is a light monster, and he's a level 5. So, again, you can special summon, or you could special summon light monsters with your barrier on the field, so you can still special summon him. And he's a good, wall defense, and he's offensive as well. And the other trap I have in here is Phantom Knight's Sword. This pretty much is kind of like your, sort of like having something like the Blockout Curtain or the March of the Monarchs. It's on 1 monster. It boosts their attack by 800. So that's kind of good when you got the barrier out, so now he's an 1800 attacker. Or it just boosts up all your other monsters by 800. And it's got an added bonus that if it's going to be destroyed by battle or a card effect, you could destroy this as well. Instead, I should say. Kind of like the Blockout Curtain. So it kind of protects your monster from that one shot kill. Then I threw in a Storming Mirror Force, kind of like the Raigeki idea, just to get rid of troublesome monsters. And finally, 3 Solemn Judgments, because this is a control deck after all, so you want to be able to say no. So once you get your setup going, and the setup can be pretty good, pretty easy to do, and pretty fast. If you were to, for instance, pull out your Photon Sanctuary, tribute him off with your March of the Monarchs, you've pretty much locked your opponent out of special summoning, and they're going to have a hard time trying to get rid of this guy. They're literally going to have to get rid of this first, and then they're going to have to get rid of him. And then if you can back this up with a Solemn Judgment, they're pretty much done. So depending on what your opponent is playing, it could be like game right there. That's kind of how this deck works. And then they are pretty big bodies, so you could start attacking right away. Anyways, yeah, that's the deck. As always, let me know what you think. I always like to hear your comments. Leave them down below. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.